Tell me, how much do you know about the history of computers?
Well, I do know that the computers as they exist today started probably back in the 60s and 70s, especially the internet or the networking of computers started way back then, primarily between colleges, different colleges communicating with each other. And um, the personal computer came about in the 80s with both the IBM compatibles and the Apples. So, yeah, I do know that computers have been around for quite a long time now.
If you can, could you tell me about the first time you used a computer?
Oh, the first time I used a computer would have to be in grade school. Uh, they had a IBM TRS-80, or commonly referred to as the Trash 80. It was a computer back in the day that had two 5 1/4 floppy drives, had a disk about that big, two of them. No hard drive, I don't recall, but it was a computer. I think it was the only computer that was available to students that this middle school had back in the day, and that was back in the mid 80s.
Could you tell me about the effect that computers had on your life?
Well, since I've been an adult, it's had quite a bit of an effect. Growing up, we didn't have them at home, so it really didn't have an effect on me growing up. But once I became adult and computers became more mainstream, computers have been definitely a hobby of mine. As you can see, I've got quite a setup, and I spend quite a bit of time, free time, just doing whatever on my computer.
Do you think technology is making children more or less social?
I think it's making them more social, but in a different way. Growing up as a kid, I had a lot of neighborhood friends, and we would hang out as friends, and I'd only be socializing with my school age friends when I was at school, because we had no way to communicate back then with each other outside of school, other than picking up the phone and calling each other. Nowadays, you see kids on smartphones, constantly communicating with each other, day and night, all the time. And in that sense, you see kids less out and about physically nowadays, but they're communicating more than ever with each other, just electronically now.
Do you think computers should be less expensive or more expensive?
I would actually see them, I mean, the price of computers have come down so far in such a short period of time. To me, in my mind, they're already cheap. And they continue to drop. But for the underprivileged folks that don't have the ability to purchase a nice computer system, I feel like computers have a long way to go as far as becoming affordable. And if they could find a way to make computers more affordable, it would allow more of the underprivileged folks to be able to use these things to the best extent that they could.
Do you think computers are making children more distracted from school?
They can. I don't think computers as in this form are distracting, other than the fact that they need to make sure they still do their homework at night instead of spending time on the computer. But what I find that could be possibly what I find is as concerning for me is the kids that have their smartphones and they're using them in class when they should be paying attention to the teacher. So that I find is possibly a problem if the kids aren't paying attention and they're not learning what they should be learning and spending their time on Facebook instead.
Do you feel secure having or owning a computer?
Do I feel secure having or owning a computer? Yes.
And why would you say that?
Because I would quite frankly, I'd be bored without it, because we all have forms of entertainment that keep us entertained when we have our free time. Some people enjoy television. I personally am completely bored with television. I prefer to be on my computer rather than sitting dead in a chair watching TV. That's just me.
Why did you buy your child a phone?
So I can communicate with them. It's certainly not so that they can sit on Facebook all day long and communicate with their friends. The reason I got both my kids' phones was, particularly when they get involved in after-school activities, is so that we can coordinate rides, and so I can be in contact with them whenever I need to. That has been it's much easier today to stay in touch with your kids. When I was growing up, going to high school, we had a couple of pay phones in the school, and that was the only way that we could call home, home couldn't call us. We had to call home and check in, was via pay phone, because we didn't have cell phones back then. Or the few that did, they were extraordinarily expensive when I was in high school. And I didn't know of any kids that had their own cell phone back then. So nowadays it's just so much easier to keep in touch with them, and gives me that sense of security to know that I can get a hold of the kids anytime I need to.
All right, that's it.
Cool.
During the 1970s, the Cold War was at its hottest, and most will forget that computers had a huge impact on how the Cold War played out. The serious part of the Cold War is that at any time the world could end. The nukes the US and Russia created had guidance computers that would hit anything they wanted and would have the range to strike anything they wanted. But when Russia launched the first dog in space, America set out to place a man on the moon, which they did, but it only fueled the fire between the two great nations. At the end of the Cold War in 1991, the internet was invented by Tim Berners-Lee. They had the Apple II to load the internet, which made everyone everywhere be just closer to each other, which led to social media and all the websites that most people use, which is a great hazard to people on the roads, but nevertheless, everyone is connected if you have a device that can connect.
What do you mean the start's going to be cut out?
It's just going to be cut out because I don't like starts.
Oh.
They start weird. Unless you want this to be in bloopers.
Whatever.